Have you ever stared into the mirror and thought, something has to change, but couldn't pinpoint what or how? Do you ever feel like you're living life on autopilot, stuck in loops of bad habits and emotional traps, asking yourself, why do I keep doing this? What if there were ancient principles, simple but powerful, that could silently reshape the way you think, act, and respond to life itself? Let's be clear, this is not another motivational pep talk filled with empty affirmations. What you're about to uncover are 5 timeless Stoic lessons. Lessons that, when lived with real courage and daily commitment, can make people stop recognizing the person you used to be. Stoicism wasn't born in comfort. It was carved through war, grief, exile, and personal trials. It doesn't speak loudly, it acts quietly, and yet its impact is thunderous. You're not going to change your life by rearranging the world around you. That's not the Stoic way. Instead, you're going to learn how to master your inner world, your emotions, your reactions, your thoughts. And that changes everything. So, pause whatever you're doing. Inhale deeply. This video isn't just a list of tips, it's a wake-up call. A call to rise above the shallow noise and take your first step into a transformation that will echo through how you speak, how you walk, the choices you make, and how you carry pain with grace. Each lesson we reveal will pull you further away from the anxious, reactive, fragile self and draw you closer to a version of you that is grounded, composed, and deeply respected by others and yourself. But make no mistake, the final lesson is the most powerful one. It's a turning point, a hidden truth the ancient Stoics treated like gold, and when you apply it, the world will start treating you differently. Even more importantly, you'll start seeing yourself through new eyes. Now, to truly understand these principles, let me share a story. One that reflects how Stoicism can quietly but powerfully change a life. His name was Kyle, just a regular guy. The kind of person who slips through daily routines unnoticed. He worked hard, complained little, but inside, he was a storm. He carried dreams he no longer chased, and anger he never voiced. Some days he would burst out. Other days he'd shut down completely. And then, on a night that seemed no different than any other, everything began to shift. Kyle was driving home, exhausted, mentally drained. That's when it happened. Another driver suddenly swerved and cut him off in traffic. Normally, Kyle would have exploded, shouting, maybe even confronting the other driver, but this time, he didn't explode. Something within him, quiet but firm, told him to pause. He gripped the steering wheel, took a deep breath, and let. The moment passed, not because he was weak, but because, for the first time, he chose not to let anger drive him. That night, still shaken but strangely calm, Kyle wandered through his apartment looking for something to read. He wasn't expecting much, just a distraction maybe. His fingers landed on an old, dusty copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He flipped through the pages absent-mindedly until one sentence stopped him cold. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Those words didn't just pass through his mind. They echoed like a bell in a quiet room. And suddenly, something clicked clearer than ever before. He had spent years trying to fix the chaos around him without once addressing the chaos within. The next morning, Kyle said nothing to anyone, but inside, a decision had been made. He would live differently. He began with small, quiet steps. He decluttered, physically and mentally. Threw out things he no longer needed, canceled meaningless obligations, moved away from distractions that used to eat up hours of his life. He remembered a quote from Epictetus: "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." For the first time in years, Kyle felt like he could actually breathe a deeper, lighter breath in the stillness of simplicity. And in that quiet, he started to hear himself. Soon he faced a test. At work, a colleague tried to embarrass him publicly, hoping to provoke a reaction. The old Kyle would have snapped, fired back instantly, but the new Kyle? He just watched, stayed silent for a moment, took a breath, and moved on. Inside, he reminded himself, that's just an opinion, not a fact. The more he observed, the more he realized most of his suffering didn't come from what happened, but from how he interpreted it. Anger, he began to understand, is rarely necessary. It's almost always a choice, and he no longer needed to choose it. Then, Kyle added another practice. Every night before bed, he opened a notebook and wrote. Not a messy emotional dump, but a deliberate ritual of reflection. He would replay the day. What could I have done better? What triggered me today, and why? What did I learn? This became his mental training ground. Silent, steady, sacred. He recalled a line from Seneca that often guided him. Nothing is so useful that it can't be made more useful through reflection. Over time, he became more composed, clearer in thought, less reactive, more anchored. Then came a defining moment. In a high-stakes business meeting, Kyle was offered a deal, one that promised a big payoff. But there was a catch. The terms conflicted with his values. Everyone expected him to say yes. But he didn't. He declined. People questioned him, whispered, wondered if he'd lost his edge. But for the first time, their opinions didn't shake him. He remembered the words of Epictetus. If you want to improve, be prepared to look foolish. Kyle now understood. Living with strength doesn't mean winning every argument or maximizing every gain. It means choosing your values and having the courage to stand by them. And that was only the beginning, because what happened next tested not just his mind, but his heart. Kyle had made a choice to live by his values, even when no one understood them. But the true transformation didn't come from bold declarations. It came through silence. He began to speak less and act more. He stopped over-explaining, stopped trying to justify every move. No grand speeches, no dramatic announcements, just quiet, consistent change. It showed in his posture, in the calmness, in his eyes, and in the way he handled pressure. People started to notice, but he never pointed it out. One coworker said he seemed more grounded. A friend mentioned he felt different, more composed. Even his family, without saying much, began to treat him with a quiet, newfound respect. Kyle knew this wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about shedding the noise, the fear, the masks, revealing who he had always been underneath. The change wasn't happening around him. It was happening within him, and no one could take that away. He had learned something powerful. Real transformation doesn't come with applause. It doesn't arrive with fanfare. It is born in stillness, shaped by discomfort and expressed through action. True change is not about reinventing yourself. It's about realigning with what has always been true inside you, as Marcus Aurelius once wrote. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Kyle no longer needed to prove anything. He simply lived in alignment with enough clarity and strength that people could feel the difference, even if he said nothing at all. No shouting, no promises, no masks. He changed, and after that, no one recognized Kyle anymore. So how do you begin a transformation like that? Let's break it down, starting with the first Stoic lesson that made Kyle unrecognizable. Lesson 1. Cut the excess. Simplify your life. In today's world, excess has become the default. Too many obligations, too much noise, constant digital distractions, a flood of information that never stops. And here's the truth. As long as you're buried under the clutter, you'll never see clearly. And without clarity, there is no transformation. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be seen as ignorant about things that don't matter." You don't need to know everything. You don't need to say yes to everyone. You don't need to be everywhere, do everything, or impress anyone. You need to focus, and that starts by saying no. Look at your daily life. How many hours do you waste on things that don't add value? How many obligations do you take on just to avoid disappointing someone? How many choices do you make out of habit without even thinking? Cut them out. Create space. Real space. Now take a look around you. Your home, your workspace, even your phone. Everything in your environment either supports your clarity or pollutes it. Clear out the clutter. Remove what you don't use. Let go of what doesn't inspire you. Delete what doesn't serve you. Simplifying isn't about losing. It's about reclaiming your attention, your energy, your direction. This is where peace begins. Because once you remove the unnecessary, you realize you never needed much to begin with. The things that matter most, they're often the simplest: time, silence, presence, purpose. Cutting the excess is an act of strength. It's you declaring, "I'm done drowning in what doesn't matter. I choose to live with space, intention, and clarity." And once you do that, you're ready for the next lesson, one that builds on this space you've created. Because now that you've cleared the clutter, it's time to strengthen the mind. Now that you've cleared the excess, you've made space. Not just in your schedule or surroundings, but in your mind. And with that space comes your next challenge: mastering your reactions. Lesson 2. Take control of your reactions. This lesson may sound simple, but if applied with true honesty, it can start changing your life within days. Here's the truth. You can't control everything that happens to you. Life will always throw things your way. Unexpected events, rude comments, traffic jams, disappointments. But what you can control is how you respond, and that changes everything. One of the very first teachings of Stoicism is this: separate what's within your control from what's not. What's beyond your control may touch you, but your response is what determines how deeply it cuts. Epictetus put it plainly. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. You can't control traffic, but you can control whether you let it ruin your mood or whether you turn it into an opportunity to listen to something uplifting. You can't control what people say, but you can decide whether or not to internalize their words. You can't control the weather, the news, or how others act, but you do get to decide whether they steal your peace. Taking back control starts in the smallest of moments. It starts when you pause, when you inhale deeply instead of snapping, when you ask yourself, is this really worth my energy? Will this even matter a week from now? That 1 second of awareness, that pause, is the start of true power. Practice it. When someone tries to push your buttons, choose silence. When anger surges, wait. Let it pass. When anxiety creeps in, bring yourself back to the present. The Stoics used questions as tools. Questions like, is this within my control? What would a wise person do right now? Will this matter in the long run? This isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending to be unshakable. It's about learning how to channel your emotions wisely. It's about becoming the observer before you become the reactor. That's strength. That's real freedom, because the truth is, people who constantly react on impulse aren't strong. They're trapped. Trapped by their emotions, by their conditioning, by the actions of others. But those who pause, reflect, and choose their response, those people are free, and freedom is the path we're on. Once you begin responding consciously rather than reacting impulsively, you take back your power. That's how transformation begins, not in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. Lesson 3. Discipline your mind every single day. Your mind is like a garden. If you don't plant it with purpose, weeds grow on their own, and that's what happens to most people. They wake up and immediately dive into distractions. They let random thoughts run wild. They become victims of worry, comparison, regret, because no one ever taught them to discipline their thoughts. But in Stoicism, the mind is not left to chance. It is trained like a muscle. It's shaped, guided, and refined daily. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life." That's not just ancient wisdom. It's a daily practice. Mental discipline begins the moment you open your eyes. Instead of reaching for your phone and getting lost in the noise of notifications, news, and comparison, pause just 5 minutes, sit, breathe, notice what's already in your mind, and ask yourself, what do I want this day to mean? Who do I want to be by the time the sun sets? That simple pause, it sets the tone for everything that follows. As your day unfolds, keep your awareness sharp. Pay attention to what you're allowing into your mental space. When a negative thought pops up, cut it off at the root. When a useless judgment appears, challenge it. When your mind drifts into the past or rushes into the future, gently bring it back to now. Stoic thinkers used anchoring phrases to stay centered. Phrases like, "I can endure anything within human nature. This too shall pass." A disciplined mind doesn't mean you never get distracted. It means you always come back to what matters, back to clarity. It's a mind that learns to say no to overthinking, no to drama, no to comparing your life to others. Discipline isn't about being rigid. It's about being intentional. And with that intention, your mind becomes not a prison, but a place of strength. Once your mind becomes steady, both disciplined and calm, you gain something priceless, the ability to act with intention no matter how chaotic the world becomes. A mind trained for both action and stillness is a weapon and a refuge. So start building it with small daily rituals. Read just one page from a Stoic text. Write down your thoughts at the end of the day ask yourself meaningful questions. Sit in silence, even just for a few minutes, and observe your breath, your thoughts, your presence. This isn't wasted time. It's training. It's armor against the noise, against impulses, against being swept away by life. And remember, mental discipline is not created in a day, but it is created every day. When you truly understand that, you stop waiting for motivation and start acting from something deeper, consistency, because the person who rules their mind rules their life. Now that your mind is becoming a foundation of strength, it's time to anchor yourself in something even more powerful. Lesson 4. Live by your values, not by other people's opinions. Take a moment and ask yourself, how many of your decisions were shaped not by your inner compass, but by fear? Fear of judgment, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being liked. How many times have you stayed silent just to avoid confrontation? How often have you abandoned a goal because someone laughed at it or because it wasn't normal? How many paths have you walked that were never truly yours? There's a cost to living like that, and that cost is called disconnection. Disconnection from your truth, your voice, your values. Stoicism teaches us that applause is not the compass. Character is. The wise do not mold their choices around what others might say. They live according to principle, not popularity. Seneca. Put it clearly, other people's opinions only carry the weight you give them. And the truth? Most of us give them far too much weight. Living by your values starts with knowing what they are. So ask yourself, what do I stand for even when no one's watching? What principles are non-negotiable in my life? What lines will I never cross no matter the pressure? Write it down, define it, revisit it, because if you don't define your values, someone else will, and you'll end up following a path that feels familiar but deeply wrong. Once you gain clarity, the next step is to live it. Speak your truth, calmly, respectfully, even when it's unpopular. Say no to what violates your principles, even if it looks like a great opportunity on the surface. Walk away from relationships, deals, or invitations that ask you to betray your values. That's not weakness, that's freedom. And here's the thing, you will be judged either way. If you're authentic, some will criticize you. If you pretend, they'll still talk. So why not choose the path that lets you sleep peacefully at night? When you stop living for approval, you start living with dignity. And that, today, is rare. Beware of cheap applause. It comes quickly. It disappears just as fast. But your values, they stay. They're the roots that keep you grounded, especially when the storms of life come crashing in. And now that you're grounded in your values, you're ready for the final lesson. The one the ancient Stoics guarded most fiercely. It's the lesson. That doesn't just change your behavior, it changes how the world responds to you. When you live by your values, not the expectations of others, you gain something most people never find: peace. Even if you walk alone for a while, it's a path worth taking. Because people-pleasing may gain you approval, but it costs you your identity. But when you look back and can say, I stayed true to myself, that's real success. And in staying true, you don't just find peace, you begin to attract what's real. Now we arrive at the final and most transformative principle. Lesson 5. Practice strategic silence and let your actions speak. We live in an age of noise. Everyone's posting, sharing, announcing. Achievements are broadcast. Opinions are shouted. Plans are made public before they even begin. But Stoicism offers a radical alternative, one of rare power, quiet strength. Do more. Talk less. Seneca once said, "Words should be clothed in action," meaning it's not what you say that leaves an impression, it's what you do. Strategic. Silence isn't about hiding, it's about wisdom. It's emotional intelligence in action. It means you don't reveal your plans to those who won't understand them. You don't share your vulnerability with those who haven't earned your trust. You don't waste time justifying yourself to people who've already judged you. True silence begins with self-control. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves a reply. Not every victory needs to be posted online. Sometimes the most powerful statement is simple, steady progress, a visible result that no words could ever match, a transformation that's felt, not announced. Here's a challenge for you. Pick a meaningful goal. Work on it for 30 days in complete silence. Tell no one. Don't seek validation, just show up, focus, and be consistent. At the end of that month, let your results speak. And when they do, you'll realize something extraordinary. People notice what's different, not what's declared. Silence is also your shield. Not every space is safe for your dreams. Not everyone deserves access to your deepest intentions. When something is still growing, it's fragile. One careless word shared too early can weaken what hasn't yet taken root. Use silence not to hide, but to protect. Because once something is strong enough, it won't need to be explained. It will be undeniable. Remember, people who talk constantly lose their edge, but those who practice strategic silence, they surprise. And those who surprise, not with noise, but with presence, earn respect. You don't need to shout. You just need to become. And now that you've learned all 5 Stoic lessons, let's take a moment to bring everything together so you can begin applying these principles not just as ideas, but as a way of life. So, what happens when you live with discipline, values, and presence, yet speak less and act more? You become undeniable. You stop chasing attention and start commanding it quietly, powerfully. That's the essence of strategic silence. It doesn't beg to be seen, but it's impossible to ignore. If you've made it all the way to this point, congratulations. That alone says a lot about who you are. Most people click away. Most people don't finish. But you stayed. And even more than that, you've taken the time to reflect, to sit with these ideas, to consider how they apply to your life. That puts you in rare company. So, now I'd like to ask you one thing. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what hit you the hardest in this video? Which of the 5 Stoic lessons sparked something inside you? Which one will you start applying today? Or if you don't feel like writing much, just type one word: gratitude. That one word tells me you made it here, and that means more than you know. And if this message resonated with you, remember, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new way of living. Here you'll always find grounded, practical wisdom, rooted in Stoicism and timeless philosophy, designed to guide you through the challenges of real life. So, if you're serious about growth, this space is yours, and before you go, don't rush off. I've left 2 powerful videos right here on the screen, filled with even more tools and insights to keep you aligned, focused, and strong. Pick one, hit play, and stay on this path the path of strength, the path of clarity, the path of becoming your best self. Until next time, stand tall, stay calm, and lead with virtue.